the Oregon Ducks, as I think many of you know, have decided to make a coaching change. Willie Taggart is their new head coach. You guys are all aware of this? Willie Taggart was the head coach at South Florida. Apparently did a really good job down there. Don't act like you're like, oh, yeah, I knew. Like, just stop it. Right? Stop it. They did a good job down there. Okay, take my word for it. Do I know for a fact? No, I'm taking everybody else's word for it. So he goes to Oregon. Cool. All right, brings his whole staff. Cool. Oh, that's great. Then his strength coach works 3 dudes into the hospital. Now, look, as has the truth has come out, it wasn't hardcore. They weren't, trying to get guys to ring the bell like the Navy SEALs are. They did some SEAL type of exercises. They were trying to get guys back in shape. I have no doubt in my mind that the football coach met with the strength coach like, hey, man, we can't. They were cutting corners before. Can't be soft. Get them into shape. Let them know there's a new sheriff in town. And players respond in kind like, yo, we got to push ourselves because they don't know any of us from Adam. They think we all stink. They're going to bring in their own guys. And between a coach pushing too hard, a player pushing himself too hard, 3 dudes end up in the hospital. And my perspective is like, all these kids are fine. I'm sure it was scary. We don't know just how badly worn down they were. They threw out this muscle eating syndrome that you get from overwork, but we don't know if all 3 of them had it. And if they did, how severe it was. I actually think you got a couple of trainers who are paying attention because there's no long-term damage done. But it does leave you open to criticism, unneeded criticism. Then your offensive coordinator, this is something that just happened yesterday, then your offensive coordinator is summarily fired. Fired already? Yes, fired. That's because he got a DUI. Their co-offensive coordinator, David Reeves, was fired after he got a DUI, which seems a little harsh. But Rob Mullins, the athletic director, said, quote, the University of Oregon football coach David Reeves was arrested last night and charged with driving under the influence by members of the Eugene Police Department. Reeves has been placed on administrative leave, and the process to terminate his employment with cause has commenced. The university has high standards for conduct of employees and is addressing this matter with the utmost of seriousness. So, like, look, we're not fooling around. And I guess you could say, like, good for you. On the other hand, boy, that means anybody who works for the university that gets a DUI has got to be bounced, right? Okay. Which, again, I'm okay with consistency, but this dude just got there, and there's nothing wrong with laying down the law. But again, opens Willie Taggart up to criticism. So your strength coach is on administrative leave for a month. Your co-offensive coordinator is fired, and Chip Kelly's still available. We talked about this when Klug was gone. And look, I don't think Chip really wants to coach college football. He doesn't like the idea of recruiting, of sucking up to and lying to 17 and 18-year-old kids about how great they are. But he was obviously good enough at it, and he had those scouting reports from Willie Lyles that helped him down in Texas. Get to the gray area of recruiting a little bit, and he'll get you close to a national championship. I'm not saying you put him in as offensive coordinator. I'm saying, can't you just put him in as head coach? Because with every pass, everybody thought Cal would do it. They went out and got the defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, who had previously been at Washington and been at USC, so he knows the area. And I mean, maybe that makes sense to Cal. And Cal goes from somebody who hadn't played defense in at least 3 years to, we went out and got the best defensive coordinator, young, energetic recruiter. Great. But there's never a sure thing in sports, right? It just isn't. Last year at the end of the basketball season, I interviewed for a couple of jobs. And the question that I got was, hey, man, you never coached before. There's a lot of unknown. So you know how this guy is going to fit into your culture? Well, he's going to bring a culture with him. Like, okay, but that's a clash of cultures. The one he wants to install and the one that's already there. Here's the thing. You already know Chip Kelly works in Oregon. Now, you could either overpay him to be the most ridiculously highly paid offensive coordinator and say, hey, look, Chip, next time you get ahead. But that would be too uncomfortable for Willie Taggart. Or you could just say, hey, you know what? They had a chance. They've been here for a couple weeks. They put 3 kids in the hospital and a coach got a DUI. Phil Knight write the check. Let's get Chip back in town. It is not the craziest idea that has ever come down. And as we pointed out with Cal when they made the move, or even before Cal made the move, Cubs did it. There's nothing wrong with Rick Renteria. Perfectly good, completely nondescript Major League Baseball manager who could be sitting next to me right now, and he could say his name was Rick Renteria, and I would have to take his word for it. But he's not Joe Madden. Oh, yeah, by the way, Joe Madden sucked in the World Series. He was not good. He almost cost them the World Series. But they probably don't get to the World Series or keep that 3-ring circus together. And believe me, the Cubs are a 3-ring circus full of ego and vigor and desire to get huge contracts. They're going to have all the issues that all the big teams have in years to come. But Joe Madden kept them together, kept them from not being bored, and made them prepared, and they won the World Series the first time in over 100 years, right? Think whatever you want of the process, the execution ended up working out enough. And so Willie Taggart hasn't coached a game. It hadn't been a spring game. He hadn't had a practice. And while he's done a nice job at South Florida, no one has any idea how he'll do in Eugene. Do you? Do you know how Chip Kelly would do in Eugene? You know why? Because he's actually done it before. Food for thought. Like, if you think you can at least have that guy, this is no different from my Dak Prescott thought of last week. Right? This is no different than my thought last week with Dak Prescott. Like, I thought Dak was good this year. He's better than anybody could have expected. I don't think he's as good right now as Tony Romo is when Tony's healthy, and Tony's healthy. So I'm not saying you absolutely trade Dak Prescott, but if the only thing out there for Tony Romo is, hey, man, we'll give you like a 3rd or 4th round pick because we got to pick up $14 million contract and the guy we don't know if is healthy, like, the market's not high for Tony. The market for Dak is very high. He doesn't make any money. He's shown he's going to be a starting quarterback, and he's entering his 2nd year in the NFL. Does that mean I make the move? Not necessarily. But if somebody wants to move the moon, the stars, and the sun because they think Dak Prescott is the next pick your running, passing, winning quarterback, then good on you, right? It's a conversation that has to be had. It's no different than the Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning. Like, do I know that Peyton Manning would be good at running a football team? I have no idea. But if you're going to make a change in your front office, you got to at least call Peyton Manning, don't you? And I know he's available. Same thing here with Chip. I don't know exactly how it all works. I don't know how big the check would be. I don't know if you get all those former assistants, if any of them moved or taken new jobs. I'm sure some of them have. I'm sure some of them out of work. Like, there's a whole lot of things that would have to go right in order for it to work, and there'd be a ton of bad PR. But you know what? It's show business, not show friends.